Hello everybody. So today I'll be talking about the sun and its effects on the skin. So at the start I would like to tell a little bit about the sun's rays. So the part of the sun's light that we can see is known as ultraviolet rays, and we refer to them as UV rays in short, and there are three types: UVA, UVB and UVC. UVA and UVB is significant for us, but UVC is not so significant for us in this part of the world, because above us we have a layer in the atmosphere known as the ozone layer, and the UVC rays cannot penetrate this layer. So we do not get any UVC from the sun, except we get your UV A and UVB. So the UV rays have a lot of effect on the skin. The UV rays can cause skin tanning, they can cause skin burn. Most of the skin cancers are caused by ultraviolet rays, and ultraviolet rays can also cause aging of the skin. This is known as photoaging. On the other hand, UV rays, like all of us know, help the body to produce vitamin D, which is very important for us. But contrary to what people think, prolonged exposures of vitamin D or sitting in the sun for a long time is not required for vitamin D production. Say a couple of minutes per day for around 2 to 3 days a week is enough exposure for a body to produce vitamin D. And then if you cannot tolerate that small amount of sunlight also, you can get vitamin D from food sources like fish, meat, eggs, and fruits like pineapple, orange, and some vegetables also. And then besides that, you can also take vitamin D supplements in the form of tablets. So the amount of, also we use ultraviolet rays to treat some chronic skin conditions by a process called phototherapy. And the amount of UV rays that you are exposed to depends on some factors, and one of them is where in the world you live. So for example, if we are living closer to the equator, we get more sunlight, and if we are living further away from the equator, we get less sunlight. Another factor is the time of the year. If it is during summer, obviously we have more ultraviolet light, and in winters we have less ultraviolet light. But I have seen that people tend to, in the winters, they tend to sit in the sun more. They enjoy the sun, and they bask in the sun for long periods of time. So that amount of exposure in the winter can also cause a lot of harm, and you need protection. Another important factor is the time of the day. The amount of UV rays that you get is maximum during midday, and less during the morning and the night. That is because during the day the sun is directly above our head, so the rays travel a shorter distance to come to us, whereas in the evening and the morning the sun's rays come obliquely, so they travel longer distance. That's why. Another important factor is weather. So generally people tend to think that if it's cloudy and if it's raining, so there's no sun. But that is not true, because even on cloudy days and even on rainy days, you do get ultraviolet, maybe in less quantity, but you do get ultraviolet rays, and that so protection is important. And another, of course, for us people in the hills, another very important factor is altitude. So if we live at higher altitudes, so the distance between the sun and the earth is less than the distance in the plains, for the people in the plains. So because the ultraviolet rays are traveling a shorter distance, there's less atmosphere between us and the sun to absorb the sun's rays. So we get a direct effect, or we get the direct negative effect of the sun, whereas people in the plains, by the time this ultraviolet rays reaches them, it has passed through many layers in the atmosphere, so most of the rays is absorbed, so the negative effects is less there. So this you can see obviously by the amount of, so for example, melasma, chaya in local language. You see much more chaya or melasma in the hills, whereas in the plains you don't see that much. So that is an example of how the distance altitude affects us. And then, so let's come to protection. So the body itself innately has a natural protection against UV rays, and this is in the form of a pigment called melanin. Melanin is the pigment that gives our skin the color. Okay, so people who have more melanin are more well protected against the UV rays of people who are darker, and people who are fairer or have less melanin in their skin are more susceptible to the negative effects of the ultraviolet rays. And what we can do to protect ourselves against UV rays. So number one is use a very good sunscreen. When I say use a very good sunscreen, I mean that the sunscreen should contain some important qualities or characteristics for it to work properly. So there are so many sunscreens in the market, ranging from very, very cheap sunscreens to very, very expensive sunscreens. And then I have seen that the very, very cheap ones, which some people, some people who can't actually afford them, they tend to use sunscreens which are very cheap, which actually do not contain any sunscreen or contain a minimal amount of sunscreen and will not protect you against UV rays. So it is really good to invest in a good sunscreen so that you'll get the maximum benefit. Now, what are the features that you would look for in a sunscreen when you buy a sunscreen from the market? So number one is the sunscreen should be a broad spectrum sunscreen, meaning that it should protect you against UVA rays as well as UVB rays. Another quality that you'd look for is that the sunscreen should contain both physical sunscreens and chemical sunscreens. So there are basically two types of sunscreens: physical sunscreens, also commonly known as mineral sunscreens, and the chemical sunscreens. So physical sunscreens protect us from UV rays by virtue of reflecting sunlight, and chemical sunscreens protect us by absorbing the sunlight. So a good sunscreen should contain both physical sunscreens and chemical sunscreens. Then another very important point is that the sunscreen should suit you. You should buy a sunscreen that suits your skin type. People have different types of skin. Some people have very oily skin, some people have very dry skin, some people have combination type of skin, some people sweat a lot. So depending on your skin type, you should choose your sunscreen. So if suppose you have very oily skin, so you should go for the mineral or physical sunscreens, and you should choose a gel formulation. A gel formulation is usually water based, so it's lighter on the skin. And people who have very dry skin, it's better to go for the cream formulations, or for lotions which will make your skin feel more oilier. And when applying a sunscreen, you should remember a few points. If you just take a small amount of sunscreen and rub it between your palms and just apply it randomly on your face, it may not work, because the more the sunscreen, the better. So it's a good idea to take a sizable amount in your palm and very patiently and very meticulously apply the sunscreen all over your face. And you should always try to apply if you're going out, it's always better to apply the sunscreen at least 20 minutes to half an hour before going out, for the sunscreen to work properly. And the number of applications in a day, usually theoretically they say every 2 hours, but most people find it very difficult to apply sunscreen every 2 hours. But at least 2 times you should apply the sunscreen: once in the morning when you get up, and once in the afternoon, say 11, 12, and then if in between, if you wash your face or if you sweat a lot, then you can reapply sunscreen. So sunscreen, you must remember that you must apply sunscreen every day, even when you're at home or even when you're going out, because some people say that when I go out I apply sunscreen and at home I don't apply sunscreen. So this is wrong, because as long as there's light around you, and you don't have to switch on artificial light, that light is from the UV rays. So you have to apply sunscreen even when you're at home. But when it's night and then you have to put on electricity, put on artificial light, then there is no UV rays. So you have to use sunscreens irrespective of whether you are sitting at home the whole day or you're going out. So another thing is, then I'd like to address a few queries, common queries by patients. What patients ask me regarding sunscreens. So some patients will say that I don't, if I ask them, do you use the sunscreen? They say, no, I don't use sunscreens because sunscreens cause my skin to burn. So that is actually baseless, because the very idea of a sunscreen is to protect you against sunlight. So there's no question of the sunscreen causing sunburns or sun tanning. Another very, very common question is, what SPF should I use? Dr. Mukund, say SPF lagaun. Which one is better? So generally speaking, an SPF of between 30 to 50 is good enough. 30 to 50 will protect you against UV rays. SPF basically means sun protection factor, but it is not a measurement of how much that sunscreen will protect you against UV rays. For example, say if you be using a sunscreen of SPF 15, 20, that sunscreen will protect you against say 96-97%, will give you 96-97% protection against UV light. And on the other hand, if you're using an SPF of 40-50, you'll get the sunscreen will protect you, say, around 97-98% protection against sunlight. So the difference in protection is not as great as the difference in the SPF. So the SPF is just basically an indication of how long that sunscreen will protect you against sunlight and how long you can sit in the sun with the sunscreen without getting sunburnt. Another very common question is, should I apply my moisturizer first, or should I apply my sunscreen first? So basically, you can, I say you can apply your sunscreen first, or you may apply your moisturizer first, because like I said, every good sunscreen should contain both physical sunscreens and chemical sunscreens. Now, physical sunscreens reflect the sun's rays, so they should be applied on top of your moisturizer, on top of whatever you're using on your face. Whereas chemical sunscreens, when absorbed by the skin, work best. So chemical sunscreens again should be used first, but your sunscreen contains both. So generally, if a patient comes to me with photo-induced issues like melasma or sun allergies, I ask them to use their sunscreen first and then their moisturizer, so that they get the maximum benefit from their sunscreens. But then there's moisturizers can also enhance the absorption of the sunscreens. So in that sense also, you can use your moisturizers first. If your skin is dry, you can use your moisturizer first and then the sunscreen. So either way, it's good. You can use a sunscreen first and then the moisturizer, or you can use the moisturizer first and then your sunscreen. And I think generally these are the questions as far as sunscreen is concerned. And please remember that, like I said, sunscreen is not 100% protection. Use sunscreens, use caps as far as possible, carry umbrellas, use dark glasses, use clothing. So I actually really wanted to I really wanted to bring about an awareness regarding sunscreens and photo protection and the harmful effects of this UV rays. So I hope this video has been useful, and I hope that you'll practice good photo protection. Thank you.